Hello, it's Oren Prunken, and last time we talked, I kind of explained the smart way to go about marketing and sales, and today I want to pick up the conversation from there and kind of explain that it is not all smooth sailing. I've been giving the analogy that if you don't have the puzzle cover, the picture of what you're trying to create, having all the puzzle pieces makes life very difficult. You can still complete the puzzle, but you kind of don't know where you're going or what you're doing. So giving that analogy, and in the last couple episodes, I've kind of explained how I came across a guy named Robert Collier, who kind of gave me the cover, the photo of what the puzzle for sales and marketing should look like. Now, when you're doing a puzzle, when you're creating the puzzle, you have the puzzle cover, but it is actually very difficult to go about creating it. It just doesn't magically put itself together, does it, right? It just doesn't put itself together. You have to make a decision. You've got this photo, got a cover. Do you actually start with the center and build out? Some people start with the outer edge and the border of the puzzle and then build in. Which way do you start? Other people start with pictures, so distinct objects that are within that photo, and create those first and then build around them. Many different options to go about completing this picture, or by analogy, do your marketing and sales. So it just doesn't magically put itself together. You actually have to put work in. And that's why I've been using this analogy, because it's the same thing with your marketing and sales. You actually have to go and put work in. It just doesn't happen and make life and marketing and selling really easy for you. So where I'm kind of picking up with this journey is that I had to put all that effort in. I had all of the pieces, all of the tools and the techniques and the tactics, but I had to actually sequence them in the right order to make marketing and sales work for me. So what I discovered and what I found to be very effective was going through and working out the different temperatures that prospects have as they move from unknown, they don't know that they have a problem, they don't know about your brand, all the way through to being a raving customer of yours. And it kind of follows the 5 stages on a thermometer of, frozen, cold, warm, hot, and then boiling. So using that as a framework of the different stages prospects go through, you can kind of line all of those tactics and techniques up against it. Now, what logically happens when a prospect goes through that thermometer is they do it in a logical order. You can't go from frozen to boiling. Water just does not do that. It has to be cooled down, then warmed up, then heated, and then get to a point of boiling. So you have to do the same thing with the prospect. They go through this in a logical sequence. Now, however, when you are doing your marketing and sales, and particularly when you're creating your marketing and sales, you actually have to do it in the reverse order. So you start with what that boiling point is, and then you move back through all the other stages to hot, to warm, to cold, to frozen. And you create your marketing and sales, or your strategy behind that, starting with boiling. Now, there is another framework that has been around for quite some time. It is the AIDA model: attention, interest, desire, and action. It was coined by a gentleman many decades ago called E. St. Elmo Lewis. Now, this framework has been rehashed multiple times by multiple different marketers and salespeople over many decades, but the framework is the same. You have to go get attention, you have to get someone interested, and then desire what you are selling, and then ask them to take action. So however you use that framework, or whatever different version of framework you use from that, the gist is the same. But when you are plugging that in, starting with your boiling prospects, instead of taking it through a logical order of attention, interest, desire, and action, you start the opposite, just like you start the opposite with your temperatures. So you start with the action. What action do you want to take? Do you want boiling prospects to take? Then once you know what action you want them to take, you need to work out what they need to desire to be able to go out and take that action. And once you know what they need to desire, you need to know how to get them interested. And then once you know how to get them interested, you know how to get their attention. And this is just concentrating on the boiling prospects. Then you do the same thing and you move back to your hot prospects. And then you do the same thing, always in reverse order of action, desire, interest, and attention. And then you move back to your warm prospects, what you want them to do, and then you move back to your cold prospects and what you want them to do, and then finally the final piece is what do you want your frozen prospects to do. And again, you work out what is the action you want that frozen prospect to take, and it's always moving to the next level up to being a cold prospect. And then you move through, and then you finally, when you're creating your marketing sales, what is that very first step, the attention you want frozen prospects to have. So you start with the temperature gauge, the thermometer, and you work backwards through that, and then you take a model similar to AIDA, and then you work backwards for each of those temperatures. And that's going to give you that framework of how you plug all your tactics and techniques that you've been learning about marketing and sales into it. And from there, you will have what you need done to make this puzzle all fit together correctly. It's the analogy of, do you start in the middle, do you start on the border, do you start on a distinct picture within that puzzle to create that final puzzle piece. So hopefully this episode, I think I'm up to about 6 minutes now, gives you a little bit more insight of, once you know the smart way to go about doing your marketing and sales, smart doesn't equal easy. You still need to put some effort in and line all of the pins up so you can go knock them down. In other words, so prospects can go knock them down with their bowling ball. They can start as a frozen prospect, move all the way through that thermometer and temperature gauge, going through the AIDA model to move them into that next temperature. And then from there, all of the specific tactics and techniques you know around sales and marketing just slot into each one of those aspects of AIDA. How do you go get someone's attention? There's lots of different ways of doing that. How do you get someone, someone just almost pulled into me. How do you get someone to desire what you're doing? Lots of different ways you can go about that. How can you get someone interested? Lots of different ways to do that. How can you get someone to take action? Lots of different ways to do that. So hopefully this gives you some insight on the process after you know the smart way to go about doing your sales and marketing and what is involved. Love you to go out and try out that thermometer and an equivalent of AIDA or a framework very similar to that by plugging everything you know into it, and see how that changes what you are currently doing. Pick one temperature, apply it, and move on to the next. Hit me back. Have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you all the next time. Goodbye.